prayer in the storm. It was early on a stormy New Year's morning. The wind had whipped the waves into frenzy as they dashed against the rocks of the little bay situated on the Pembroke Peninsula. The inhabitants of the tiny Welsh village were woken by the sound of a cannon going off. This could only mean one thing: a ship had struck the dreadful rocks and was in danger of sinking. Quickly the villagers wrapped themselves in shawls and oilskins and gathered on the shore. Over on the rocks they could see a great ship, and rushing about her decks were scantily clad sailors ushering passengers still in their night clothes into little boats. The villagers watched as manfully the sailors pulled for the shore, fighting the waves which came thundering onto them, then onwards to the sandy shore, landing at the feet of the anxious watchers with a sullen roar. Half drowned with spray and in deep states of shock, the passengers in the small boats stumbled to safety. Parents found missing children, husbands, their wives and friends, clasped each other's hands in delight that each was safe. But there was one little girl, a girl of 10 years old, who ran frantically from group to group, gazing anxiously into each face. Then with a shriek of despair she cried out, "Oh, Minnie, Minnie, they've left Minnie behind!" "You ought to be thankful that your life has been saved," scolded a portly gentleman. "No," replied Minnie, tears and sobs choking her voice. "I would have rather died with Minnie. I've nobody left in the world but Minnie." "How come you got separated?" asked a lady gently. "We woke up when we heard a great bang and noise," said little Mary, "and I ran up on deck to see what it was all about. I was just going back to tell Minnie when somebody picked me up and put me in the lifeboat. I thought they did the same for Minnie. Oh, do save Minnie," cried the child in distress. "I'm afraid that's impossible, my dear," said a gentleman. "The ship is filling fast with water and will go down soon." Tears ran down the captain's face. "I have a wife and children," he said, "otherwise I would risk my life for the little one. These 2 girls were put in my charge in Australia. Their parents have died and I was taking them to their uncle in England." Suddenly Mary darted over to a weather-beaten sailor and throwing herself upon the wet sand, she clasped his knees. "You used to play with Minnie and me," she cried. "Do save her, please do." "God help me, I will," said the big-hearted man, and taking every precaution possible, he plunged into the boiling sea. He was a powerful, muscular man, but the watchers on shore often feared him lost. Mary knelt on the sands, her hands clasped, pouring out prayers to God for the rescue of her sister. At length the sailor reached the stricken ship and climbed on board. A cheer went up from the watchers and on the beach. "Minnie!" called the sailor. "I'm in here!" came a frightened little voice from the salon. The sailor waded his way there and found Minnie kneeling on a chair on top of a large wooden table, completely surrounded by water. She was praying to be taken to heaven and to comfort poor Mary. In a moment the sailor had her in his arms and carried her through the ever-rising water back onto the deck of the stricken ship. Bravely Minnie clung to the back of her rescuer as he strove to fight against the waves. Sometimes they were on the crest of the wave, sometimes buried by it, but bit by bit they gained the shore. At last they lay gasping on the sand, bruised and battered but safe. Words fail to tell the joy of that meeting between the 2 sisters. The sisters went to live with their aunt and uncle in Lincolnshire. One day, 3 years after the shipwreck, a rough-looking man came to the door of the house and asked to speak to Miss Minnie. The maidservant said, "Certainly not. Miss Minnie doesn't have anything to do with the likes of you." "The likes of me?" said the man with a smile. "Why, what do you take me for?" "Why, a beggar, to be sure," replied the girl. The man was just turning to go when Minnie happened to look out of an upstairs window. Giving a cry of joy, she rushed downstairs and flung herself into the stranger's arms. It was the sailor who had rescued her. Written on the fly-leaf of Minnie's Bible are these words: "Call upon me in the day of trouble, and I will deliver you, and you will glorify me." As I was going over this story, which happened over 60 years ago, the thought came into my mind that the boiling sea in this story is like the storms of life which threaten us. We are lost and sinking fast within the ship of self. We need rescuing. I do not know what lies ahead in the seas of this year, but I do know this. If I ask Jesus to be the captain of my ship, it will not go near any dangerous rocks. But if I take over the helm myself, there's every chance that I will hit the hidden reef of self. Won't you today ask Jesus to pilot your hour of life through this year ahead, your boat of life through this year ahead? You can cut some of that out if you want.